Hello, everybody, and this is a live stream about design thinking. Today, I have a very, very high privilege to be speaking to Priszcilla Várnagy, who is the CEO and founder of Be-novative, which is a company that is producing very, very useful and interesting product around design thinking and streamlining design thinking processes. So we're doing a 3 live series on the subject of continuous innovation and making innovation an everyday occurrence rather than something that happens either by chance or through some luck event or something like that. So without me having to go too much into it, Priszcilla has been kind enough to prepare a presentation for us. But before we go into the presentation, that will talk about how Be-novative creates everyday innovation and enables that for various companies. Priszcilla, please introduce yourself a little bit and, tell us about, what you do and how you came to be doing what you're doing today.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm also very excited to be here and share with all of you our experiences with Be-novative. We are lucky enough to be working with more than 60 amazing, mostly large enterprise clients on 6 continents, just like Cisco, GE, Microsoft. And I'm the CEO and founder of Be-novative. My background is in organizational and educational psychology. And basically, Be-novative is an innovation software that helps all these companies to motivate their employees to share disruptive ideas and follow up with the implementation until a breakthrough solution is formed. So besides we are an innovation software as a service, we also like to think about our clients as partners, and I like to learn a lot from how to actually achieve that innovation becomes an everyday practice, and who are our true innovators.
Awesome introduction. I think that's always best that people introduce themselves rather than me try and introduce them and to sort of do it in the wrong way. So our structure for today is to let you present how you do things, what you have in your so to speak toolkit that's very useful for design thinkers, and we'll be covering this more in part 2 and part 3 of this series as well. So today's presentation that you've got for us is a little bit of an introduction, I believe, that's quite structured, and then after that we'll have some chit-chat conversation and questions that come up to me really and from the audience as well. So anybody who has particular questions, please ask them in the comments, and then we will look to pick them up and answer them if they arise. So please go ahead and present to us. I promise I won't ask any questions until your presentation is finished, and then I'll ask lots of questions afterwards. Okay, so thank you very much for that.
Super. The true innovators are not the ones who come up with the right answers. They come up with the right questions. If you work or have worked in any large enterprise, you might be familiar with the situation that as you walk into the building, you see either a physical or a virtual representation of an idea box. And if you move forward on the corridor, you see many posters with classic quotes like "move fast" or "be different," of course with a light bulb, because a light bulb is always necessary to wink at you, right? You progress soon to the innovation lab, and you see their fancy gadgets, a coffee cup, a foosball table, and of course that red thing, the beanbags. Of course, they have to be in the innovation lab. Does this sound any familiar to you? I guess it is, but unfortunately, many of these innovation labs are always empty, and often the idea boxes are abundant with a dozen or a couple hundred ideas waiting for the senior management to review them. This process is broken for a number of different reasons. And in order to fix it and create a company culture with the DNA of Google, we need to win over the common innovation barriers that hinder continuous innovation. But before we go into that, let's look at some research. Because as I said, I'm a psychologist, so I researched it for about 7 or 8 years, how to enhance both individual and group creativity, and what are currently the best practices on the field. And what I found is that design thinking is always advised to use that improve the product development process, and also you need to have both a top-down and a bottom-up process that will influence your organizational culture. And innovation challenges are, of course, good tools to be used to empower your people to share ideas all the time. So this is how we get to the first barrier, which is the innovation theater. So if you remember the picture that I just showed, it is what Steve Blank calls the innovation theater, that describes a situation when the company invests their heavy resources into the process, but without the clear strategy and without really encouraging people and without the process to be aligned from beginning to end for these future innovators to apply. Let me tell you an example of how to get this strategic alignment and how to go around the innovation theater. When we started to work with Microsoft, who was one of our first clients, I had the luck to meet a visionary leader who was the CEO of the company. And she had a vision to impact the national healthcare system in a positive way. But instead of pushing her idea onto the employees, she created a facilitated ideation session involving everyone to answer the question, how could we better the national healthcare system with the use of Microsoft technologies? People gathered more than 200 ideas in just like one day, and already in 2 months, they had 19 ideas selected to go forward to implementations, and 10 of them was actually implemented as totally new projects. So Microsoft soon got a lot of media attention, and this is how the vision of the CEO herself was an example for every single employee. But what is the takeaway from all of that? First is that not every innovation process starts from the CEO and the top-level manager, but if you see that there is a need for an organizational change, the top-level management are really good as role models, and if you can involve them as early on as possible, then they can influence much more people on a higher level, and it's going to be good for the outcome. If you have one challenge, then you can state what is a good process to move forward. And if you have this process, you can create a guidebook and send it around so that other people will be able to follow that too. And CEOs have always the resources available for them for the implementation, but it's not only for the CEO herself. If any innovator has a good cause, they need to be able to not just involve other people to share ideas, but also to connect them with the right resources to be able to move forward and implement these ideas, because at the end, the outcome will drive the results and the media attention. This is how we get to the second barrier. That is the lack of creative simulation. Because in this example before, Microsoft created a really good facilitated session. And in these facilitated sessions, people were able to build on their idea concepts and involve diverse groups to be able to come up with the idea together. Because if you think that the process starts with a great idea and you just have to follow from there, I have to say you are mistaken, because you can take long walks, you can have lots of showers and do the washing a lot, but if you don't have enough creative stimulation with your everyday job, then you will have a hard time to come up with the right idea. Why these facilitated sessions are really great is because they involve multiple methods. And as you probably are really familiar with design thinking, which drives the process that is on the right side of my slide, it is about breaking down the process into small sprints when people need to concentrate on one single question at a time. So in design thinking, the first thing is to know who is your target customer and your target persona. Then if you define what is their environment and what drives their attention, then you can ideally ideate together with them on what would create the most benefit and drive the most value. And answering this question as well, going to the prototyping phase, you now have the question on what is like the minimum version that you can visualize this benefit for the target group. And then the testing phase, you can ask the target clients, what do you think this specific prototype is for? Who do you think it would generate the most value for? And again, in other methods like creativity enhancing techniques, there are important questions. For example, how would you associate this specific challenge to a solution that was used in other industries or in other departments? Or in the Kaizen idea collection, you have the question on what are the wastes that you face every single day? What are the unnecessary things that you can get rid of to make the process more efficient? Or in Lean Startup, you focus on what are your riskiest hypotheses and how can you best validate these hypotheses to show that you are on the right track. Especially, every single method is broken down into multiple of these sprints. And in a sprint, when you have the question, you involve diverse groups of people to share ideas together in a playful way. Any early stage ideas are welcome. Then they move forward to the implementation on the two most important criteria. It can be impact and feasibility or anything else. Then when you know which ideas can be grouped together or built upon, then you know what is the concept to move forward with. And if it's relevant, you can even track the implementation stages. But a breakthrough solution consists of many of these sprints, and you just have to know what is the right question at the right time. But let me give you another example. When we started working with Deutsche Telekom, the most important goal they had is to have disruptive solutions that could be introduced to the market within 2 years. So they decided to use a facilitated session as a hackathon. That was 2 days long, and they invited every single employee to come up with early stage ideas that answer one single question. How do you think the world will change in 5 years from now? And what are your surprising solutions that you think will impact our B2B clients' operations? And instead of asking the people to submit like tangible solutions right away, what's worse with existing team members, they orchestrated the whole process that was built up from multiple sprints. Actually, I wanted to show you that this is how the real innovation day looked like. But the most important part of that is the colorful sprint taglines that you see on the left on my screen. It shows how the teams had to concentrate only 1 hour from inspiration to concept creation, prototyping, validating their ideas until they were ready to present them. The most interesting question, I think, was the one maybe at the concept creation, when we again used design thinking methods with other facilitators at the event. And the groups had to answer the question. Now you know who is your target persona, then say what would be the thing that they feel, think, and did before meeting your solution, and what this target persona would think, feel, and do after meeting your solution. So you now get a feeling of how it all went, that every single team had to concentrate on coming up with ideas and answers one by one. Well, I would say what was really amazing for the jury at the end is that they found that instead of just one single idea, that they can give resources to be implemented really soon, they selected 3 of these presented solutions that they thought were ready for market introduction. And in fact, it was true, because within ready and introduced on the market, and Deutsche Telekom is really proud of that. But for me, not this was the most surprising part, but the most surprising part was when we felt that those people who participated in the hackathon realized how important it is to solve problems involving each other, and they started to identify these kinds of problems, challenges, or opportunities in whatever department they were working on. They created a challenge, let's say, in HR about how to improve talent management, or in marketing for better conversions, or even business development. Also, the top-level management created a challenge about what will be the strategic direction and the opportunity for the entire company in 3 years from now. And this is how we get to the tangible outcomes that I would recommend for everyone, that the best thing is to invite diverse groups of employees to these facilitated sessions. Go through small sprints. Don't expect that a breakthrough solution will come from one single idea that you only need to execute on. And when people take part in these facilitated sessions, just promote the challenge creation, because this is giving creativity permission for everyone. So the third barrier to overcome is the myth of the lone genius, the notion of the innovator who comes up with the idea alone and then executes on it, working for really long nights at the office, no sleep, no eat. The innovator should be so the only way to overcome this barrier and arrive to continuous innovation is to build on the collective creativity. Because according to Greg Settle, the author of the book Mapping Innovation, no one person ever has all the pieces of the puzzle. Even if we think about visionary innovators like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos, we have to realize that the reality is that they were both leaders who often orchestrated and synthesized the work of other geniuses like Steve Wozniak or Jonathan Ive. They often got inspired by opportunities they realized connecting various ideas and outside solutions that they brought into the company, transformed it, and this is what we call a breakthrough. It was not one single idea, but several ideas, and in fact several questions, like dots. And the dots and insights that underpin the innovation are driven by questions we ask, the observations we make, and the people we involve and inspire. The true innovators are the ones who spend 50% more time on the discovery phase of the innovation process. Clayton M. Christensen, who is the author of the well-known book, The Innovators Dilemma, said that the profile of the innovator is the one who observes and identifies the challenges. They realize problems other people don't necessarily realize, and opportunities to act upon and to always improve. They are the ones asking the right questions. They are networking. They are not afraid of involving people early on and to give a chance to have a better answer and a better idea than what they would have. But they are really good in association. They can connect the dots. They can connect ideas and experiment in small steps and ask these questions again and again all the time. In large enterprises, these people are called intrapreneurs, who will mostly identify the opportunities for improvement, solve problems, and involve diverse groups in different challenges and connects the dots till a breakthrough solution is formed. Whether a company has 10 or 100,000 of employees, it has access to an untapped resource of unique, diverse, and broad perspectives and insights that the employees of these companies don't share effectively. Any company with a customer service has employees who make hundreds of observations each and every day and generate new learnings, either consciously or just subconsciously. And many companies say they don't have problems with finding ideas, they have problems with the acceleration and the implementation of ideas. Well, the reason is because they expect the solution to come from the idea instead of from the question. Did you know that 99% of the startups fail because they come up with the solution first and not the question on how to create most value for the target group? They spend way too much time on perfecting this solution that no one has ever seen or validated. The solution is through Agile Innovation. Accepting that the innovator needs to ask the right questions, create challenges where they involve people with diverse backgrounds, and validate the ideas as early as possible with the target group. So the key, I would say, is not rewarding failure. The key is rewarding the challenge creators who come up with these right questions, because they are the ones who can move forward fast, sprint by sprint, question by question, connecting the dots and getting resources for implementing the best outcome. And your innovators may not come from just product development, or not even necessarily from the innovation team that you have. Let me give you another example how my team members met a very young, talented innovator at the marketing department of Vodafone. So they wanted to have a campaign for university students, for young people, to make them engage more to the brand and to say that they are an innovative company. Of course, it would be so easy to just have slogans like Vodafone is this innovative and Vodafone is for you, youth, and this is what we have done so far. But instead, this young colleague came up with an open innovation challenge that they could do virtually. The challenge question was, how do you imagine a useful app that promotes collaboration and support university students? And the young people could share ideas. They got really engaged and inspired. And the best ones, like 50 of them, were invited for a hackathon where they could meet the top level management of the company and work together, fusing these insights into new solutions. And instead of just having a marketing outcome like good conversion rates, Vodafone also saw a perspective in multiple of these solutions that they could move forward into the company. Not even speaking about how good it is for employer branding reasons. So in my perspective, the goal is to discover ideas through multiple of these various challenges and arrive to a solution that we are truly passionate about, that drives the world forward, that solves an important problem or impacts at least a lot of people around you in a positive way. This way, we will not only be able to achieve more, learn more, and get our full potential, but also make the world a more creative place to be. So what if your true innovator is a shop clerk? What if you could connect the dots in countless ways? And what if anyone with the right question could disrupt your own industry? So what is your question? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this and doing it in a structured way. I think your slides are always the most inspiring slide that I've seen in a long time, if ever, and they work nicely with the narrative. So I've got a question. Okay, and as I was listening to your presentation, I was thinking about there's always an element of meta aspect here in regards to how all of this works in design thinking. Because I was thinking about questions. My first question is, how do you ask effective questions? Do you have any methods for asking effective questions?
Yes, actually, it's a great question. And in design thinking, it's always written down that like you have the cards, for example, that IDEO produced with multiple questions, like hundreds of them, and you really have to be an expert knowing which question to ask what time. So we with Be-novative, we give the platform, which is to help people to create challenges, ask the questions, and other people can join these challenges that are already made questions. So we are very happy to work together with consultants and other facilitators. Most of the times we rely on them to have the question be formulated, but we also have a collection of best practices, like typical questions. It's something like a collection of like 20 or 30 of the most important, most efficient ones that we have seen in large enterprises, broken down into business development and product development, even process improvement and lean. And this is just for inspiration. But as I said, I think a true innovator is the person who knows the question the best.
And so I totally agree. If just as I'm speaking yourself on mute, because you're getting some feedback on this. So when I finish my question, then you can also. So I think there is another aspect here around what I liked about your presentation is that you're combining methodologies, and I've always said that like design thinking is an approach that welcomes any other existing methodology that's already existed in the market, like Agile or Lean, or even any sort of Six Sigma and heavy-duty management practices, or Kaizen certainly is a sort of baked into design thinking, I would say. So I love that aspect that you're supporting all of that, because it's not really about saying, oh, that's wrong or that's right. It's like these are all tools within our toolkit as design thinkers. And I also liked what you said about orchestrating and synthesizing and connecting the dots, because we've been thinking and practicing really this whole concept of holonomics, which is around combining and including and transcending previous solutions. So like when two atoms stick together, they create a molecule, and that molecule has higher value than two atoms separately. And that applies to lots and lots of other things that we create and design. And so I wonder, can you say something around the idea of how you facilitate this process? Because what I was wanting to ask is, when two atoms bind together to create a molecule, they are sort of doing that from their level of awareness, so to speak. But when they do something that creates a bigger value unit, they are now kind of rising in consciousness, in awareness. So there's a question here around, how do you facilitate people to do something that is of higher level of value from kind of doing it from a lower level of awareness? Unmute yourself now.
Yeah, so you put it perfectly. And actually, how we approach the situation, we can do it virtually in Be-novative, is that we believe in the passion of people. So first, the whole process is gamified, is risk-free. Any person who is passionate about a topic or gets invitation because other people feel their contribution is highly needed, then they join this challenge, and they will be aligned into small teams working together, like a team of 4, sharing a virtual wall with virtual post-its that anonymously they can share their ideas on. And they also go through phases of sharing inspiration to be able to come up with more ideas. And from the beginning, they share the ones that were already in mind to the ones that are really surprising, connecting to random words, and so on. And at the end, they move forward to the voting on the ideas, like evaluation. And at that phase, I mean, like previously, they could give a like on the ideas, showing that they appreciate it. But at the evaluation phase, they can say that this idea is the highest, let's say, on impact and feasibility. And we believe that throughout the process, everyone is able to discover ideas that either they shared or have seen from others that they were really passionate about. And how we like make it to a higher level, combining the ideas, is after the evaluation phase, every participant will be asked again a question that we have seen that there were some ideas that you ranked really highly. Now, how would you improve this idea, or how would you make it even more actionable? What are your suggestions to it? And then people can add suggestions to the ideas that they already have seen some potential in it. And this is how a good conversation can start, and they can build on each other's ideas until an idea concept is formed. And then from the idea concept, it's like a future plan in Be-novative, but I think I can share it, that they can use various design thinking canvases to build on the idea and make it more tangible, already together with those team members who believe in the same thing. So we believe that it's going to be better if it's based on the idea and not based on existing social relationships, how a team is formed.
Yes, definitely. And so one thing that I also had a question around is, I've seen this all the time in design thinking workshops, that people who come up with ideas tend to love their idea the most. And there is the emotional attachment to the idea. Oh, I came up with that. I came up with that. And often the time people come up with ideas that are exactly have come up in various other teams million times before. It's nothing unique whatsoever. There's, in fact, it's not innovation. It's like backwards, the opposite of innovation. It's like denovation or something like that. And so this emotional attachment to idea leads towards skewed judgment of its value. And so I wanted to ask you around how you quantify the value of an idea based on a framework that is less emotionally driven than that kind of self-referential framework of like, I came up with that, I liked it the most, and I'm going to shout across everyone else as much as possible to make that a thing that is the most valued.
Yeah, so firstly, I think in virtual tools, the most, like the biggest problem is that if we ask the people to like leave it open as a challenge, and the ideas with the most likes will be moving forward. And in fact, these ideas, if they are not anonymous, I can just say to my friends, please vote on my idea because I'm so passionate about it and I'm so sure it should win. And if I have a lot of friends or if I know a lot of people, then the chances that my idea will level up is much higher than if I'm shy, I'm a junior, I just started, or I'm the person other people usually say, oh, it's again you with again your stupid or crazy ideas. So the first thing is to make it anonymous, and that removes the bias of who shared the idea. It's the CEO, it must be a great idea, or it was my friend, so I have to like it. And then if unbiased people share on a 3 x 3 dimension, on a 2 axis, that if this idea is like high on impact, medium on impact, or low on impact, and the same on feasibility, then if enough people are voting, we can really just average out the points. And what we do in Be-novative is we create a 1 to 10 point average, and also combining it to the number of suggestions that were created. So those ideas that other people usually think without knowing who shared it to be really impactful, feasible, and there are a lot of suggestions on how to take the action to make it to the next step. Usually these are the ones that we will call a trending idea concept.
Awesome. And that's where the concept of design thinking, I once heard it described as the combination, blending emotional with rational. Okay, and these emotional mind or emotional self is not compatible with rational self in a natural way. In fact, it's like some research shows that that's exactly how our brains have evolved, because sort of emotional is there to guide us to kind of escape from things that are dangerous from us, whereas rational is there to help us validate whether certain things are good or bad, and so on and so forth. So these kind of like aspects of us have been evolved in that way to give us different perspectives on life. Yet as design thinkers, we're having to blend them meaningfully together, because solutions have to be both emotionally impacting as well as rationally achievable. So I love this fact that you have abilities to classify ideas across a 2x2 that has got 3 levels of weighting to it. And so one other thing that I wanted to ask you was, and I always have this kind of problem around asking questions. So I'm sort of running in my head, is always running this kind of matrix as to, is the question that I'm asking even worth asking? Is it meaningful? But I think these questions hopefully are meaningful. And so I noticed that in your presentation, you had an example where the young, was it student or a guy from a department at Vodafone, he asked the questions such as, I'm paraphrasing, what would be the best app for something and something else. Okay, so the point there is that the fact that there's a word app in the question is already implying a solution. This needs to be an app. So to what extent do you see kind of this implied solution in the question, and to what, just tell me a little bit more about around asking questions, to what extent should we or should we not imply the solution in the question, so to speak?
So I believe that until we get to the breakthrough idea, it's really like multiple questions and not one single one. And to have the right question, it should be, we usually say like medium broad, like not too broad, like the same thing we could have asked like how to have something valuable for you as a university student. I think it's like way too broad, like useful for what and in what sense, and that does what exactly on or used in which environment. But if it's like too narrow, it's again not good enough because it limits our possible ideas. I would say the good limitations are the ones where we set the direction. So in that case, I have to say I was not personally involved in the challenge, but my colleagues were. But we usually recommend that keep the word what kind of app in the challenge if it's already sure that, for example, there is a software development team and they are waiting for what kind of app to be done. So it's like, if it's absolutely sure that we want to build an app, then ask this as a question, it's fine. But if it's not necessarily an app, but you can bring together resources to create another solution as well, then it would be a pity to limit it to what kind of app. I believe in this situation, they were curious about what are the things that could work as an app that the students could carry in their phones. And that was the reason. So usually I would connect it also with the first barrier, to have strategic alignment. And if the challenge is tied to the strategy, what is really important. And in fact, we also say that giving examples in the question, or rather in the description, is not a problem, because it can say what could be possibly a good answer, like good enough, or how elaborate an idea could be.
Awesome. So the next one is actually coming from the chat, and Jim has asked from where the best questions usually come from. Is it from the ideation, or where should we get started with the internal question collection? Unmute yourself.
If I understand the question right, we are curious about who and how should give the question, and if it should come from the ideation itself or somewhere else. I think it should come from the discovery phase. So either something that, like a project we just start to work on, we have to realize that before we create any strategy, or before we create the action plan for a project, it might be a good thing to ask people who will be involved throughout the project, like, what is your idea for the best possible outcome? Or how would you do the action plan in the most efficient way? But then if it's like a long-term thing, for example, what kind of business models to use in a new market segment if we want to go into the small medium enterprise segment from the large enterprise one. What are the business models, or what are the solutions that we could build? Most likely the answers will be still high level, something like use a platform with a subscription model that works this or that way, or have a service for small medium enterprises with this or that. But then the innovators should realize that it's too high level to start the implementation, and then they could ask a question which comes to the next sprint, like, okay, how do you imagine the best value for your target group? So what is, for example, the best value for an SMB CEO to have a solution of a platform that offers this? What would be the value? And then go from there. If you know the value, for example, what could be the first marketing action, how we should announce this new product, and so on.
Okay, and so one more question before we wrap up for this episode. And let's remember that this is part of 3-episode presentation, and I'm sure we're going to go into much more detail on practicalities in part 2 and 3. I love this idea of the myth of the lone genius. So I wonder to what extent your solution is enabling unification of thinking across organizations and creating the organization itself with many, many different employees into this lone genius across the whole organization. Can you say something about that?
Like, the question is how to unite all the employees together to build on collective creativity and come up with solutions together and not alone, right?
Precisely.
So in Be-novative, every participant joins without having any single idea at all. So it's not like you have to fill in a form and, as I said, take as long showers as you want until you have the idea, then come in, type it in, and wait for the management review. But rather, you should arrive with like a blank, empty page. It's fine if you don't have any idea at all, because with built-in inspirations, just like the ones we use in design thinking workshops, just digitalized, like sharing pictures, collecting the typical brainstorming part where you already see what other people have been thinking of, and it's just like one sentence or even just one phrase of an idea is enough. Then you start thinking, and as you start thinking, you will be sure to have your first idea going on. And as you see more and more inspirations from other people, other teams, that's how you will form your next idea and your 5th idea and the 8th one. And this is how other people are doing it at the same time as well. So they constantly build on each other's idea. And at the evaluation stage, it's not only your small team, but you can see every single idea if you wish from the session, and you can get inspired. You can go back to the challenge and you can share ideas as long as you feel inspired. And at the end, it's like as short as a minimum of 20 minutes. Even if you invited hundreds or thousands of people, you will see, according to everyone, these are the, let's say, 3 outcomes of the challenge, or these are the top 10% of the ideas that are potentially the most impactful, feasible, or potentially the best to move forward. And in fact, I didn't say it totally clearly, but Be-novative is not just a platform inside large enterprises. So if you wish to have a collective creativity involving people outside the organization, you can do it on a community platform. you just publish a challenge, and you can invite both colleagues and also your target group or talented university students and have ideation session together with them. But even if you don't do it in Be-novative, you can do it with various workshops or with the hackathon example as well, where you have hundreds of people. The most important thing is you shouldn't expect them, or anyone shouldn't expect them to arrive with a whole idea that is already written down and expect them to collect team members and to work on just how to execute it or just how to elaborate on it. I believe that collective creativity will happen if we allow people to get inspired together and to be able to come up with the ideas together.
So, okay, there's one question then, and just a general observation to make is that you guys are not consultants, right? You're not consultants that are doing so much design thinking, but you're offering this platform and tool that enables design thinking workshops. So tell us just a little bit about what is your target audience for Be-novative platform. And I already know that it's consultants and design thinkers who are looking to streamline this thing, but tell us just a little bit more as to who this kind of tool is perfect for, please.
Yes, it's a great question. Our target customers are anyone basically in the enterprise, either innovation managers or HR managers, or somebody from the marketing field who has one single session that they want to either have people to ideate on or create a continuous innovation culture in the company. So this is a platform. We are not consultants, therefore we are very happy to work together with consultants and design thinking facilitators, and we are also happy to show how the tool can be used in the workshops they are running, how it could be tied into, for example, a hackathon. And I'm also very proud of the customer success process that we have in Be-novative. So because we have a close partnership and win-win kind of attitude towards our clients, that's why I know these case studies. So we always believe in getting enough feedback, think together with the clients. So although we are not consultants, but we always like to be there answering questions, know what are the concerns, also celebrate the success stories together. So that's why I know the background of all these stories, but we are very happy to work together with consultants.
Awesome. And one more question actually comes in from the chat. Reka Borankai is asking, how can we encourage people to feel engaged with innovation within the organization? This is almost like one for consultants, but because you work with lots of consultants and design thinkers, and you've probably gone around this loop many times, tell us, if you have any sort of quick tips on this, or, maybe even the platform, the Innovative platform supports this kind of issue. And I know this, like from personal experience, I know this is a huge challenge to again, sort of make people feel engaged, but also get them engaged with innovation in the organization.
So just very quickly, we use psychological triggers and gamification throughout the platform to engage people. Also, as they move through different stages and different sprints, they will be like most of the times they really enjoy the process from the first moment on, and because it's playful, because it's risk-free, and at the very end there is a leaderboard to see who were the top 3 people who contributed with the most impactful feasible outcome. They get really encouraged, and usually they feel empowered, and they see it's an easy process. But I have to say that this is actually a perfect ending, because this is going to be the topic for our next of the webinars. So I will be able to share much more on how to encourage people to take part in the innovation process.
Awesome. And just because, you know, I like to honor questions from the audience, there's one more that's come in, and then we'll wrap up. So the question is from Richard Svetniak, who said, what is the impact of CEO on design thinking process, and what's his or her role? You mentioned a little bit at the beginning around this, that the innovation can be led top down or bottom up. But I think let's just expand this question a little bit to say, what is the impact of CEO on design thinking process throughout the process? I know that they can initiate the idea that we all should be doing design thinking here, but what about throughout the process?
So firstly, they are role models, and if they communicate it well enough that ideas are welcome, and it's important for the entire organization to involve as many insights as possible, as quickly and as efficiently as they can to solve problems, then they did the best. If they are able to run these challenges themselves, that's even better. Throughout the process, I would say an addition is to make sure that resources are available to move forward. But I also have to admit this is something I mostly read in books. My personal opinion is that the innovators who are the true ones will find a way to work with whatever few resources they have, because there are always priorities. Like, we should do things that are already important for the company. And if something is already important, we should do something anyways. So I think it's possible to find the resources if it's important enough.
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing these insights, Priszcilla. And I really look forward to our second part that's coming up in the near future. So for everyone who's interested in more of this kind of practical, this is real world stuff from loads and loads of different case studies. We always get asked for, like, can you share case studies on this? Can you share case studies on this? This is the real world case studies, real world insights, and then also a platform that's been developed and delivered based on the commonalities across all of that, so that we can do more and more design thinking workshops, more and more design thinking consultancy across more and more big organizations. Because let's face it, we have a huge job as design thinkers, as basically catalysts of the future and redesigning humanity, as we describe it in Integral. We are not going to redesign humanity by doing things over and over from the ground up. We have to be using powerful platforms and working together and connecting these dots and leveraging whatever we can to do this at scale and impact lots of different people. So thank you very much, Priszcilla, and I really look forward and encourage actually everyone, please like this, comment further even after the live stream, and we'll answer the questions in the comment boxes, and subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, your consultants, share it in various other design thinking groups, and you will get alerts when the next episode is ready to go live as well. So thank you very much all for joining, and thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm also very excited for the next one. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye-bye.